Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Friday, January 21st, 2022, and today we're going to be talking about the state of Virginia and how the Democratic Party, with their new court-approved maps as recent as December of 2021, I believe, December 29th, the Virginia GOP-leading Supreme Court unanimously approved the brand new state congressional districts, state House of Delegate lines, and state Senate lines, ultimately putting the Democratic Party in a position to win back control of the Virginia House of Delegates in 2023 and maintain their control of the Virginia Senate. Now, the source I'm going to be using talking about the analysis here is Blue Virginia, which is a partisan source. I'm not here to try to sway anyone to vote a certain way. What we are talking about today is merely what the Democratic Party sees as their strategy at winning back control of the state of Virginia despite their 2021 losses. And it actually is much more practical than you think. Because after the state of Virginia went red on the governor level, people might think that the state of Virginia is back to where it was in its swing state status. And I'm here to say that that simply is not the reality. The brand new state House of Delegates maps and state Senate maps put the Democratic Party in a better position and were acknowledged by both the Republican and Democratic appointees from the state Supreme Court that they shift the states towards the left. These districts have gotten more leftward as a result of the statewide shift towards the left. Despite the 2021 governor's race may be going red, the Democratic Party has won every single statewide race since 2009, with this one only being the exception. So knowing that, the Supreme Court took that into consideration and was fine with a map that more benefits the Democratic Party than the one we are used to. And we'll talk about why that's actually so bad for the GOP, even though they may have recently won control of the House of Delegates. And in this Virginia governor's race, one thing that you may notice is that Glenn Youngkin didn't win by a resounding margin. Under Barack Obama's first term as president, the Democratic Party lost the Virginia governor's race by over 20 percentage points. The race itself was simply not competitive, and the Democrats really didn't have a shot. And even though the state of Virginia went blue in 2008, that didn't result in Democrats being competitive in 2009's governor race. In 2013, though, the expectations were defied. Every single incumbent president had lost control of the Virginia governorship since the 1990s until Terry McAuliffe won in 2013. This was an exception to the rule, which is why he was renominated in 2021 as the former governor. But besides this, glitch in the matrix here, the 2021 Virginia election was very much on tune with what we were expecting. Biden was falling out of favor, and people were beginning to push back on the Democratic Party, and thus the Virginia race ended up going to the GOP, but not by an extraordinarily large amount. And seeing this GOP victory, though, one thing is very clear. The state has shifted from where it was in the 2020 presidential election. When you take a look at how it voted in the 2020 election, you will find that Virginia voted for voted for Joe Biden by a margin of 10.1%. And I make this a point every single time I talk about the state of Virginia that Joe Biden's margin of victory was the largest margin for any Democrat since 1944. So keep that in mind. So it's swinging to the Republican Party wasn't necessarily enough to say that there was a 20-point victory for the GOP like we saw in 2009, but it was still a significant victory for the GOP nonetheless. But with this gubernatorial victory, one might expect the GOP to perform well in the House of Delegates, and arguably they did. But there is a bit of a caveat to that. Though they did perform well in the Virginia House of Delegates, personally, I am not impressed by their ability to win 52 seats. You see, the state of Virginia was a state that had a long-standing history of electing Republicans, and Democrats completely turned that around over the past 10 years. And one thing that I do want to point out as well, that in 2013, despite the Virginia governor election going towards the Democratic Party, get this, the House of Delegates went to the GOP. And it didn't go to the GOP by some type of minuscule margin that we saw in 2021, where the GOP now has a 4-seat advantage over the Democrats. I mean, we are talking about a position where Democrats had a 30-seat plus difference between their representation in the House of Delegates and the GOP's. Because in 2013, remind yourself, this is an election year in which Terry McAuliffe won the election rather than lost it this past year. 2013's Virginia House of Delegates election, the GOP won 54% of the popular vote to the Democratic Party's 40%. And that resulted in 67% representation for the GOP and Democrats at just 33%. I mean, the margin here in terms of the difference was a difference of 34 seats in an election where Democrats were winning the governor's election. So it is a bit worrisome for the GOP that in an election year where they actually win the race, they get a less substantial House of Delegates election. And after the new drawn House maps, the Republicans really don't stand much of a chance, at least in any election where Democrats are winning the statewide popular vote. And we'll talk about why that might be in just a moment. But seeing this here, seeing the fact that the GOP simply could not replicate what they had in 2013 is a testament to a shifting state. That's why the new districts were approved unanimously. It made sense that the state itself saw a shift towards the left in their newly drawn districts because the state itself has shifted further towards the left. I mean, seeing these results, you will see a very clear difference. And one thing in particular that really should jump out here is the impact of Republican gerrymandering. Republicans had full and total control over the state redistricting process in 2011. They did not control the state Senate, but won it back that year and then pushed it off to allow the newly elected Republican state senators to approve the brand new maps. So with these newly approved brand new maps, the GOP drew themselves a map that was beneficial for themselves, and it worked out for a very substantial period of time. I mean, since that map had been drawn, the House of Delegates had handedly gone to the GOP, and the Republicans actually did not lose control until 2019, when Democrats won back control for the first time in 20 years, then promptly lost it in 2021. But the Democrats were, in essence, smart about what they did with their minuscule reach and power. What they had was the ability to draw brand new districts, ones that would be more favorable than the GOP drawn ones they were used to for the past 20 years. And that's exactly what happened. So, in this analysis here, they talk about the likely majority makers for Virginia Democrats to hold the state Senate, a state Senate that is only narrowly in favor of the Democrats, likewise to the United States Senate, and win back control of the House of Delegates in 2023. I mean, as someone who could see this on a surface level value, you might say there's no chance Democrats win it back. Biden is not going to be popular in 2023. We've already seen the impact of an off year on the Democratic Party. Virginia simply isn't going back to the Democrats until 2024 or maybe even later. But that simply isn't true, because this result was not what the GOP needed. This result was not building up their majority ahead of what is expected to be and ended up being a pro-Democrat new map that has been finalized and completely will be used for 2023. Seeing the Virginia House of Delegates, there were some pretty close races in 2021. Let's go ahead and see how close they actually were. Looking at the close races, what you found were that there were 6 gains for the GOP in these margin of victories that were under 10%. You saw every single one of the gains for the Republican Party in this scenario, with the exception, I think, there being one individual exception where the GOP had a significant victory. But looking at the results here, you will see that some of the results were 0.3%, 0.4%. 1.5%, 2%, 2.3. Some of these Republican victories that Republicans had incumbents in were only 3.6, 4.9. That should be somewhat worrisome for the GOP. And Democrats should also worry. But I would say 2021 probably might be their low point as we go into the next year, which means that these House districts that Democrats may have narrowly done well in, first of all, will be drawn and have been drawn into better districts for them now. But the national environment might be slightly different. And considering that Democrats currently hold 48 seats in the House of Delegates, one thing that I do want to point out about these brand new maps is that no matter what happens in 2023, the Democratic Party is bound to pick up a seat. And I'll show you why that is. Because Democrats won 48 in 2021. Well, get this. In the newly drawn maps in the state House of Delegates, you will find that the state house has 49 seats that voted for Biden by at least 15 percentage points. I mean, think about that for just a moment, right? Think about it in the sense that there are, 48 seats the Democrats were able to hold on to in 2021, and many of them being close. Many of these races being exceptionally close, if I'm arguing it fairly. 1.15%, 1.97%. Some of these, 5, 6, 8, 9% were considered to be close, but truly won't be, especially after the fact that there are now 49 seats, which means Democrats are bound to pick up one, that voted for Biden by 15 points or more. I mean, you're talking about safe blue districts. And while Republicans may be able to narrow them up, it won't be enough to completely push away the way that these districts have voted for Biden. Because even the state of Virginia, in all of its glory, in all of its Republican surge and support and defying the expectations and shifting the state fundamentally, every single county shifting fundamentally from the left, well, get this 13-point shift isn't enough to crack a 15-point Biden district. And that's the harsh reality for the GOP. Even if every single new district here shifts towards the Republican Party like it did for Glenn Youngkin, and that's counting on every single candidate here being well off, doing well in the polling data, doing well in fundraising, doing well in support, assuming every single one of those candidates does well, they simply don't have it. They do not have the numbers, and Democrats are bound to pick up one, which means all Democrats need at this point are 2 additional seats. And here's how they outline their plan to get it. They have House District 65, which voted for Biden by 12. The former Democrat lost, but now the district is newly Democratic, more Democratic than it once was. House District 97, Virginia Beach, voted for Biden by 13 points. Though a Democrat lost in 2021, could very well win again. Interesting, looking at that. House District 22 voted for Biden by 6 points. House District 82 voted for Biden by 11 points. House District 57 voted for Biden by 6 points. House District 75 voted for Biden by the same amount. House District 71 voted for Biden by 3. House District 86 voted for Biden by 3. And House District 89 voted for Biden by 2 percentage points. I mean, seeing this, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 districts, in addition to the 49 safe and solid districts that they have, in order to, for the competitive races in 2023 and, those safe races altogether, the Democratic Party could actually be in a position where they gain more seats than they did in 2019 when it comes down to what they did. In 2017, Democrats surged in support, got rid of the Republican supermajority, and went 51 to 49. Then in 2019, the Democratic Party gained a total of 6 seats. 2023, if the year is just slightly off from where it was in the 2020 election year, or even slightly off from where it was in 2021, Democrats could actually gain potentially an upwards of 6, 7, maybe 8 or 9 seats, considering how many of those voted for Biden and are also toss-ups. Which means Democrats could be in a position where they're better off now in 2023 than they were in 2019, which is hard to realize and hard to imagine considering the consistent losses in 2021 from the Attorney General's race, Lieutenant Governor's race, the governorship, and then the House of Delegates. But one thing to keep in mind, the maps of then are not the maps of today. And on top of this, the Democratic Party didn't just make themselves solidified in the state house, they also did so in the state Senate. The state Senate went to the Democratic Party for the first time since 2015. That was when the Democrats lost control to the GOP, but not by a super significant amount. Now, keep in mind, in 2015, the Republican Party was, taking advantage of Obama's unpopularity. We were getting right into the midst of a next presidential election, and the Virginia State Senate voted for the GOP 21 to 19, which gave the Democratic Party 19 seats and the Republicans 21, which meant that there was a very real possibility Democrats were going to flip the Senate. But with all of that considered, I mean, the Virginia Republicans also had, 66 seats in the House of Delegates. They had a significant advantage when it came down to legislation. Then it had to go to Governor Terry McAuliffe for his reasoning there. But the Virginia State Senate, what I want you to hear from this is that the Democrats won it in 2019 by only picking up 2 seats here, despite them winning the popular vote across the state by over 10 percentage points. I mean, you're talking about a difference of nearly 14 points between the Democrats and the Republicans in the Virginia State Senate, yet Democrats only pick up 2 seats across these state Senate elections. But instead of these races becoming more competitive, the Democrats solidified those 19 seats that they had typically held on to for quite some time. Under the new map, according to Blue Virginia, 19 seats in the state Senate voted for Joe Biden in 2020 by, get this, at least 20 percentage points, which means the GOP will never have a substantial victory in the Virginia Senate because the Democrats have 19 seats that simply are not going to waver. I mean, this is not even comparable to a 15-point bar that has been set in the House of Delegates. This 20-point bar is going to be so much more difficult. I mean, that's acting as if Virginia is twice as blue as it is today in terms of its margin for, or at least the margin was twice as large as what it was in 2020. It's crazy to think about, but that's what the Virginia Democratic Party did. And those maps were approved by the state Supreme Court. These maps actually, weren't necessarily drawn by and for the Democratic Party. This process itself was drawn by an independent commission itself, so I do feel that I need to clarify it, but it is very clear which party benefits as a result of it, and while that may just be a result of the state itself shifting towards the left, the results are clear. And one thing that would need to happen is that Democrats would need to win 2 seats in the Virginia State Senate. They can't win just one like they do in the United States Senate because there is a Republican lieutenant governor. But here's the good news for the Democratic Party. There are 5 majority makers as ranked by Blue Virginia. They have State Senate District 24, which voted for Biden by a margin of 9 points. State Senate District 16, where Biden won by 17 points. They have State Senate District 31, where Biden won by 13 points. State Senate District 27, where Biden won by 6 points. And State Senate District 17, where Biden won by 6 points as well. I mean, it is something to, I guess 7 points here. But it is something to consider. It is something that is super important for the next election. Because what this tells us now is that the Democratic Party is in a very strong position. I mean, what this tells us now is that Democrats simply aren't going to be losing like they did in 2013, losing like they did in 2015. That is just not the future for Virginia Democrats. Because of this new map that they have drawn, they have put themselves in a good position to win in any year that is slightly more pro-Dem than 2021, in addition to the years that are 2021, similar. When you see the 13-point shift in the state of Virginia, you might say Virginia Democrats are done. If this replicates in 2023, they're done for. But that's simply not the case. The House of Delegates doesn't get worse for Democrats than it is now. In fact, they gain if you have a 2021 similar type of scenario. And the Virginia State Senate doesn't get any worse for the Democratic Party than what they endured from 2015 through 2019. So seeing this all together, seeing the way that these new maps are drawn, personally, I don't think the Democratic Party should be heavily worried. Obviously, campaigning and, after seeing 2021, races that they expect to win can't always be deemed as such. But under these new maps, they are in a much more solid position than they were previously, and they should be a bit more confident than they were in 2017 and 2019 when it comes down to the House of Delegates and also the Virginia State Senate. So I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2022 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.